In part 1 of the test, it tells you to open the file Team Players. And the first thing it asks you to do is to sort the players' names alphabetically. So if you will highlight the rows with the player names and then click on Data, and there's an A to Z sort option, and you can select that and it will automatically sort it for you. The next thing it says is that the players are ranked by experience, and it wants you to create a VLOOKUP table starting in cell A26. Now this is the table and not the function. So in cell A26 it actually is wanting you to put the data that's listed on the table. So this will be experience, and next to that we will say rank. And this is the part that you have to decide what to put here. Excel can't read letters or words, it can't read the greater than and less than sign or here. It has to have numbers. And so when you're doing a VLOOKUP, it has to be an ascending order from smallest to largest, whether it's letters or numbers. So you have to determine how you want to arrange the numbers so that it gets the appropriate criteria. And in this case, the first thing it's going to do is look for the first value here. And so you want to pick a value for someone who has less than 3 years experience, or in this case for the player. The easiest way for this, we're going to say that we're going to start with 0. So from 0 to 3 years basically, because we're going to go ahead and put 3 right here. Let me put this and then we'll talk about it some more. And we'll put 5. It's going to look at this table and it's going to say less than 3 years on this row is going to be a player. When the VLOOKUP formula looks at the table and it sees someone that has less than 5 years, it's going to say assistant captain. And when it gets to someone who has 5 years or more, it's going to be a co-captain. And so it next tells you to format the information. And so basically you're just going to bold the titles here. And it tells you to name this table table. So highlight the information that we just created, and we're going to go up here where we put the range name and call this table and hit enter, and then the name should stay there. Now while I'm here, I want to talk about how to correct range names. If you have an error or you need to delete one, if you will click on formulas, you can go to name manager and it will show you the names that you have. And so here is where we created table. And if you needed to delete that, this is where you could go to start over. The next step that the test has is to tell you to actually enter the formulas for the VLOOKUP function. So in column E, this is where it actually wants you to put a formula. And so in this column, we're going to say equal VLOOKUP, and you'll see that the help information starts popping up. Now you can click on the function key at the top here if you prefer to use the box. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just type the formula. So you're going to open a parenthesis, and the first thing you want to do is you're going to tell it what it's looking at. Well, it's looking at this information, which you can click it and see it selected D2 for me. It's going to look at this information, and you want to see where it falls down here in this table. And we've named this table, so we're going to go ahead and say table right here, and you'll notice it shows you the names that are available right below. So it's going to look down at the table, and it has lines around it now showing you that it's selected. And then the third criteria is the column that you want it to get the information from to put in this field. And I think that's where some of you were a little confused. When it says COL on the boxes, it's talking about the column, so it's not actually a cell. It's the second column, first column, second column. That's what you want it to. Okay, we left off part 1 with the VLOOKUP function. And basically we said equal VLOOKUP, and we told it we're looking up the information in D2 in the table below, and we're going to put what is entered in column 2. So once we hit enter, we came up with co-captain because this particular player has more than 5 years experience. So we would click on that and grab the fill handle in the bottom right and drag down to copy. And so now we have the rank for each player. Now, if you were to want to add an if error to this formula, it's always best to do one formula at a time and then add another step to it. So if we're going to put an if error, for instance, if something's spelled wrong or if there's a blank, we would click at the beginning of the formula and add if error. Of course, we have to add another parenthesis, and then we would put the criteria, comma. We want it to put blanks. A double quote means to put a blank, and then we would close that. Now, that's only in that first cell where I entered it at the moment. So once again, we have to grab the fill handle, which is the black plus sign in the bottom right corner, and drag down. And now we have the if error formula also included. Okay, the next thing that tells us is to center the information in the rank column. So we're going back to the home tab and we're going to click on center for the information. Now, it also wants us to go to cell C25 down here, and I actually have set my information up in a different row. So we're going to go next to player, and we're going to enter a count formula. And what we're doing is we're counting up how many players over here are identified as a player, which is the title we're using right here. So we're going to go into this cell and we're going to say equal count if, and you could name the range before you do this if you want, but we're going to actually select the range. Let me go back up to 2, and we're going to say count from this range if they are a player, by identifying the player cell in column B. And that has counted for us. And if you double click it, we've got the color coding showing you exactly how things match up. Now, once we do that, here again we just click, grab the fill handle, and copy that down so that it totals all 3. The next thing we are to do is to create a macro, and we're going to create a macro to right align our name. So we're going to go to View, Macros, and it actually is set on record, so we're going to tell it to stop. We're going to tell it that we want to record a macro, and the first thing we have to do is name this macro, and we're going to say name. Now, if you wanted to, you could set a shortcut key, or you could also store this macro in your personal macro workbook, which means you could get to it from any of your worksheets. So we are just going to leave it in this workbook and click OK. Okay, and since I already had a macro with this name, I'm just going to tell it that I want to replace the existing one. Alright, so now it is waiting for me to do whatever keystrokes I want it to record. And then when I'm done, I'm going to click on this stop recording. So you just go ahead and do exactly what you would do to insert a header or footer. So you're going to click on insert, header and footer. You want your name to be right aligned. So we're going to type name. And if you needed to change